Hello, everyone. We're excited to have you here with us today as we chat about Cayosoft's Instant Active Directory Forest Recovery. I'm Justin. I work alongside the Microsoft experts here at Cayosoft, and I just need to quickly run us through some housekeeping items before we jump into today's demonstration. So first off, your microphones are muted, but please don't let that stop you from asking questions. Now, depending on how you join today, whether in browser or through an app, you're going to see a question or chat section on your screen. Drop your questions in there and we will keep an eye on that. If we happen to not cover your question, we will personally follow up with you after the event. I'd also like to point out that we do have a few data sheets and other supporting assets in the handout section for this event. Those are all free and available to you, so feel free to check those out, download, and share with your team. Now we have with us today Chad Nichols, who is one of our great systems engineers. You can see his picture here on the first slide, but before we get started and let Chad take over, we will head over to the next slide. And if everyone could take a quick moment to follow us on social media, that would be awesome. You'll see here we've provided some QR codes for all of your favorite social channels. So instead of trying to search for us, you can conveniently scan these codes with your phone camera, and they'll take you directly to our pages. And there you can follow, stay connected with us, and keep up to date on the latest and greatest information and events, just like this one. So that takes care of that. And now I will pass it over to Chad. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you, Justin. Always a pleasure. So again, thank you everyone for joining today. Going to try to keep this, I wouldn't say short, but as short and sweet as we can, because I want to cover this stuff in as much detail that it makes sense, but keeps you coming back for more, as they say. So we're going to talk about Active Directory, forest recovery, and backups today. And just from a demonstration standpoint, we're going to go over, backup plan, recovery plans, dealing with fault tolerance. We're going to do an actual instant forest recovery, and I will explain to you what that is once we get to that point. And we're also going to go over some other scenarios where recovering doesn't necessarily have to involve doing the full forest as part of your recovery plan. So enough of that. Let's go over to my demo environment and get started. So this is Cayosoft Guardian, and this is Cayosoft's monitoring, protection, security, recovery, backup software for your organization. It's fully hybrid aware, so we can connect to one or more domains and forests for on-prem Active Directory to monitor and record changes to objects, attributes, all the things that make AD. Also, full forest backups and recovery of AD. But we also manage or monitor, protect objects and attributes and things in the cloud as well. So if you have an Azure tenant, one or more, again, that you can connect to Guardian, and you can use that to monitor for those changes in the cloud as well. And you can also leverage the cloud as a destination for backups, for recoveries, for a multitude of things. And we'll get into that as well. So I'm going to get started with forest recovery. This is definitely our main topic for today, and I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for that. So first topic, backups. Forest recovery backups are very important because if you don't have a backup, obviously you can't do a restore. This particular backup is a true full backup that the entire Active Directory forest. Now that can be one domain controller, or it can be 1,000 domain controllers. That's really up to the customer on what they want to back up, where they want to back it up from, and also where they want to back it up to. I would recommend at least 2 just for redundancy's sake, but quite frankly, we don't need more than a couple of domain controllers to be able to do a full recovery. And I'll get into that here in a moment. But for backups, we do support as a destination for your backups with our product on-prem. So if you have a network share of some sort, whether that's a server share or a NAS or a SAN storage location, we can write backups directly to that as long as it can be accessed from the server. So that's kind of the legacy way, and we have customers that use this method today. But we can also leverage Azure file shares and Amazon S3 as a target for backups. This is a really unique and great way to add some immutability to your backups. Putting those to the cloud really obfuscates where the backups are located, and unless the bad guy, you know, is super clever, they would have to figure out, you know, these paths also have the security credentials to access this. So again, very, very secure way to store these backups. And there's really no chance also that these could become mounted to a server and therefore become a target for encryption. Now, speaking of encryption, we can do encryption at rest of your backups. We also do some vulnerability scanning during the backup process to look for, you know, ransomware type of files that could be potentially in the sysfall area, but we do not do what's considered a typical system state backup. We do a more of a subset of that because we don't take anything from the boot record or any of the boot files, and that way we don't take a chance of reintroducing the ransomware when we do the restore. But creating and maintaining backup plans is very simple. Once you've connected your domains to the product, we'll recognize those domains. We'll know about all of the domain controllers in the domains. So it's really just adding a backup plan, configuring what domains you want to add to your backup plan, where you'd like that backup stored. And of course, we can leverage any of the 3 options for storage locations. Typically, we recommend that you configure the backup based on network topology. You want that to be as efficient as possible when you're doing your backups, you know. So if you have domain controllers dispersed around the globe, you know, have a backup plan in each regional location if you want to back up multiple servers in multiple locations. That way, when the backup is being performed, it is going over the local network path. And that goes not only for on-prem backups, but also for those cloud backups, you know, because Microsoft and AWS both enable multi-geolocated cloud services for individuals as well. We do start by picking a minimum of 2 domain controllers in each backup plan. Quite frankly, you can back up just one, and you can still restore every domain controller in the forest with that single backup. But as redundancy is always what I prefer, I would say a minimum of 2, but you can back up every single domain controller in the environment if you wish, but that's totally up to you. Once you pick your domain controllers, you basically decide on a time that you want to do the backup. Do you want to enable encryption? The encryption is done with BitLocker. This is Microsoft's, you know, built-in functionality. It is a container-based backup. So at the end of this, you will have a file that is encrypted, and that file, it can be taken and moved to whatever location you need it to be on. But if a bad guy gets a hold of it, unless they have this decryption key, they're not going to be able to access the data. So it makes it very secure, but it also makes it to where you can move it to different locations if you need to. So create your backup plan, decide what domain controllers you're going to back up, put a schedule. Are you going to encrypt it? We will generate a decryption key automatically if needed, or you can create your own and have that. By default, we will notify you of backup completions, whether they are successful or unsuccessful, and that way you are aware if there are any problems that are seen during the backup process. Next, let's talk about recovery. Recovery is where we like to really set ourselves apart. Instant forced recovery, we're going to start with that because I'm actually going to do a instant forced recovery while we wait. I'm actually going to get rid of this job. I'll start a brand new one. So what we use when we talk about instant forced recovery is we call this recovery plan for standby forest. Because we have the ability to leverage the cloud for backups, we can also leverage this for recovery. And we do support both Azure and AWS as a recovery destination. By default, also, we set it up to only recover one domain controller per domain. And that makes things quick, easy, and quite frankly, very easy to recover the rest of the domain at a later point. The whole purpose of getting your forest back with instant recovery is to do it as quickly as possible with the least amount of effort and also in the most repeatable and way. Once I create this standby forest recovery plan, I'm going to see some options here. So because I said only one, excuse me, domain controller per domain, the default here is going to be to automatically remove the metadata for any domain controllers that I do not recover. I had a ransomware outage at my previous employer, and I had to do all of this completely manually for 100+ domain controllers. To say that was time intensive would be an understatement. Not to mention the fact that the stress of making sure, hey, did I leave anything behind? Because there's multiple locations that you have to go to clean out this data. But with our product, you can do all of this completely automatically, and it really takes the guesswork out of it and really cleans up the environment when it does restore. From there, it's just setting a schedule. Because we do this to the cloud, as part of the process, we will build out the entire environment in a separate resource group, if I'm talking Azure, with its own network that's not peered or routed to the production network. So it's a completely isolated environment. But the nice thing is, we do the build for you. You do not have to create or build any VMs yourself to test restores, or if you have a real ransomware outage, to recover from one. So this will, on the schedule you set, go out, build a recovery site, build all the VMs, restore Active Directory, and at the end of the process, shut everything down. So you have servers out there at any given time ready to go, and your recovery goes from building servers and doing a recovery with legacy tools. Instead, with our product, all you have to do is change your VNet to make it peerable, routable to production, power on the DCs, and that's really it. And because you've already taken the time to test this on a regular basis, because it's so easy to test, because it's literally just spinning up servers and logging in and making sure AD is okay, you also have that confidence level that it's going to work because it already has. When you have an outage, or if you have an outage, you literally just turn things on and you're ready to go. So the peace of mind you get is really what takes this to the next level. You can modify some of the recovery settings. So, based on the location of your subscription, where you want to do the recovery, the prefix name, what types of VMs you want to recover to. This is pretty standard. You can change this if you'd like. The virtual network space is kind of not really super critical because this is going to be, again, not peered. You just want to make sure it's not going to overlap with what you have today. The Guardian password and administrator, this is just the default. It doesn't really make a difference because once this is done, it's going to be domain controller. There's not going to be a local password or administrator account anymore. And then the final decision is going to be, how am I going to access this when I have my recovery and need to do testing? We can automatically put an IP address on this, or we can also configure it to use Bastion. So we can do an automatic Bastion instance. A little more secure for those that know about Bastion. Or if you want the network team to wholly manage the network settings in the resource group, that's fine too. It's really up to you. The only other decision points really is how many copies of your Active Directory force do you want in the cloud at any given time, and how old do you consider your data before it's no longer valid to do a recovery. So for instance, if I haven't gotten a valid backup in 5 days, I'm not going to do a restore because this data is out of date and it does not make sense. I would not expect anybody to get to the point where they have that long of backup failure, because you're going to get notifications and be able to take care of that long before 5 days occurs, but just in case. And then again, with the number of sites you want, for example, Monday is the first time I've run this. It'll build the site, restore my forest, shut down the servers. Tuesday, it'll do another restore if I'm doing this restoration daily. Build out the servers, shut everything down. Wednesday, same process. But at the end of the process, once it's done the checks to make sure that the restore is successful, it will then go and delete the oldest version. So again, I will always have at least 2 copies of my Active Directory forest in the cloud, ready to go, fresh OS, and all I have to do is spin it up and start. I'm going to go ahead and kick this off so this can run in the background and you can see basically what's going on. And if I take a look right now at my resource groups in the cloud, I've only got some standard ones here, one for my backups and my network watcher and managed identities. So in a minute, I'll see another one be created and all the VMs and everything, and we'll kind of let that run. We do also support the more, I guess, legacy methods of recovery. So if you do need to recover to VMs that you've built yourself in VMware or Hyper-V or AWS or Azure, wherever those happen to live, you can create a forest plan to do recovery to pre-existing VMs. All you need is to specify the local username and password that you've given for the local admin account, what IP addresses are going to be for the recovery servers. Probably not going to be the same ones that we did for the backup. So just change this to match the IPs for your recovery environment, kick this off, and it's basically the same process. Again, it will do every single step to do a full recovery. All we need is a base OS install. And the reason we do it that way is because we don't want to take a chance of reinstalling a virus. So we always do a install to a fresh OS installation, and that eliminates the possibility that we're going to reintroduce the virus, which always lives in the OS. There are other options too. If you need to recover a single DC, maybe you've had a VM that failed and you need to just bring back a single DC. you can definitely do that if you don't want to do a legacy promotion or something to that effect. And then also you can recover the entire forest, like I said, from a single backup. So if you have one domain controller that has a legitimate backup, we can rebuild the entire forest from that as well. Or if you only want to do select ones. And that can be done as an authoritative or a non-authoritative restore as well. So we do want to hit as many scenarios as we can to kind of take into account, the different things that could occur. It doesn't necessarily have to be a ransomware attack that would affect you and make you have to, recover AD. It could be a bad, schema update or something like that. So there are non-malicious changes that can occur that can make Active Directory become unavailable. Okay, so let's talk about some of the scenarios that can occur when just normal operations are ongoing within the environment. Things don't necessarily have to be malicious, right? People make mistakes, we're all human. And for that, we have the change monitoring and change history piece of Guardian. So what this does is this will monitor in, near real time, the changes that occur both on-prem and cloud, and will reflect those changes within the tool. So just the simplest thing that I could say here is if I just change, I'll put something in notes. So I've made an attribute change to one of my groups. It's nothing that's malicious, just something I did, as you see. And so now I see a change come through for that. One thing to note with our change monitoring, we do see the native changes. So if for whatever reason the event log is not functioning or some bad actor has turned off your events, you're still going to see changes as they come through. So we'll still see the property changes. What we use the event log for is to correlate the data. So if I open this up now, I see the properties that were modified. So here's my old value, my new. And then I see the rest of the information, where the change was made, who did the change, all of those types of things. And we actually log the actual audit events in the database. So you do have a record of that long term. Because as you know, the Active Directory database or the Active Directory event logs on the servers roll over very, very quickly. Just the nature of the way they work, right? So this gives you some long-term retention of those event logs if you need them. Another thing that we offer too, because we know the old value and the new, we can easily undo a change that is made if you need to do that. We also have integration with AD Connect. So if this is a replicated object, so a hybrid object, we can force the replication, and basically what this will do is initiate a Delta sync on the AD Connect box. So it will go ahead and do that update. That way you don't necessarily have to wait for AD Connect to run on its own schedule to get the cloud side of your synchronized object up to date. So I just did that rollback, and now here I have another change that's come in, and now notice the values have been reverted. And so if I look back at my group, notes are gone. Probably one of the more impactful things that we've seen, and we actually had this happen to a customer of ours. An engineer was working on a Friday and accidentally ran a script targeting the incorrect group and did this. And then went home. Did not really know that they'd made an error. It was an innocent mistake, but a very impactful one, because this happened to be the licensing group for frontline workers, and now the help desk is getting calls that folks no longer have access to Teams or email, right? So it makes a big impact when you have your frontline responders, they can't communicate. So what they did was they called us. They were still in proof of concept at the time, and here is the actual process that we went through with them to guide them on how to recover. So let's say Alan's called in. Here's his latest change, removed from group. Here's the information. So now we can go to the group itself. And because all of this stuff is linked in the background in the SQL database, it's very easy for us to tie all this data together. So you can do this kind of forensics and triage. Here's my change to that group. And now if I look here, here's the big change that was made where I removed all of those users. And now from this location, I can do the rollback action and say yes. And once this is done, it will restore every user that was removed from that group. So now if I go back and I look at my group, notice all the members are back. So, this is something that the recycle bin and AD or the cloud, quite frankly, would not have been a help because this is a attribute change, not a deletion. Now that being said, both for on-prem objects and cloud objects, we do interface with and leverage the Active Directory and Azure Active Directory recycle bins to recover objects if they're deleted. So here's my deleted group. Because we also pick up all the changes that are made to the impacted objects because these groups, or this group in this case, is going to have members, property, but the user accounts are all going to have a member of changes. The managed by attribute is going to be updated. So we record all of the linked attributes and objects. So that way, if we do the rollback action and recover this, not only do we get back the group, but we also get back, once this is complete, but we're also get back the linked objects. So my members are back, the managed by attribute back. So everything is back the way it was prior to the outage. And that's very important. If you just do a straight recycle bin restore using the native tools, not quite as intuitive or easy. There's some extra work you have to do. Also, let's say that I deleted this group 91 days ago, and now it's aged out of and completely deleted from the recycle bin on-prem or cloud. We can still recover it. What we'll do in that case is a create instead of an undelete. So you still get the data back, all of the attributes back. You would have a new SID or a new new GUID if it's a cloud object, but you get all of that information back as part of the restore process. So we can still bring things back even if they've aged out of the recycle bin. Another thing that we can do too, let's say there's an object that you want to fully manage, and I don't want to have to manually roll back changes to this object. We can set up what's called automatic rollback. And what that does is if there's a change made to a object and I'm monitoring for that change, here is my original changes. I have one for the attributes, one for the group membership, and actually that thing refreshed on me before I even had a chance. But notice now I started getting some alerts. So I have alerts coming in that there were changes to my protected group. We have built-in interface. We can leverage Teams for alerting and reporting. So we have direct access to be able to do that with Teams, direct integration, and we also support email alerts as well. So we do have some different options that you can utilize if you want to get alerting, so both email and Teams. But basically what happened was this came through, the changes were made. Because I have automatic rollback turned on, it undid all of those changes for me, and I didn't have to do anything manually myself. So it reversed the membership changes, reversed the attribute changes, everything. You can get very granular with this. It really just depends on how you want to utilize the product and what you want to protect. For the cloud, we do monitor for changes to the tenant, so tenant level changes, users, groups, contacts, different things in Azure as well. And I'll show you the list here in a moment. But this is one I like to show because this is actually a tenant change that's not logged in the unified log. So unless you have some kind of a third-party solution to do some more custom monitoring, you are not going to see that this changed, because as a global admin, I can elevate my privileges. But notice here, now I've gotten this change that I've changed my role. This happens to be one of the changes that we alert for out of the box. And so now here's my elevated privileges change. And I got alerted to that right away. Again, out of the box with Microsoft, you wouldn't even know that occurred. So it's good to have the visibility to know something like that happens. Chances are it's going to be completely innocent, but if it's not, you know about it and you can easily undo that. Out of the box, you're going to see automatic alerts on changes to domain admins, enterprise admins, schema admins, admin SD holder on-prem, global admins, things, conditional access policy changes, things like that in the cloud. Very easy to do queries to see when things change. So if I want to see all my Azure AD changes, here they are. Here's a change I made recently to demonstrate changes to conditional access policy. So I changed the controls for that and then rolled it back. GPO changes. This is a very popular one because as folks make changes to on-prem GPOs, you want to know that happened. And if somebody makes a change that breaks something, you can also use our rollback feature to undo that change. And so even with GPOs, you'll see the changes that are made. They're shown in human readable format, and you can easily undo those. So we're trying to be as robust as possible with this product. It's ever expanding, and it's very, very extensible. And just so you can see it before I go back to check on my restore, here's my Azure change collection job. So this is what we see today. So tenant settings, domains, roles, PIM, users, groups, admin units, conditional access policies, name, locations. These three actually are being tested. So these are coming soon. Devices, apps, and service principals. So, changes to your enterprise applications, your application registrations, devices, things like that. So ever expanding. For Teams and Exchange, it's looking at tenant level settings, organizational level settings for both of those, and also then mailbox settings, team and channel settings, things like that. But it gives you some great visibility to take care of those types of changes that are not necessarily something you want to have to restore the entire forest to take care of. If I have a group that's emptied, I don't want to have to do an AD restore to fix that group, and you don't have to with this product. Okay, let's take a look at the recovery real quick and see where that is. Looks like it's still running, but let's look at the execution history and see what processes are going right now. So we do a completely new install onto brand new OS. Everything's built for me in the cloud. So this deploy the recovery site piece is going to build brand new servers in the cloud for my restore. And if I go to the resource group here, I can see that my resource group's been created. And here are all my VMs. In this case, only 2 with the public IPs. And again, the VNet is created in a way it's not peered or anything. So I can have these up and running, do not have to worry about authentication traffic being utilized or these being hit from production. I don't want any kind of a collision with production traffic. The rest of this process is what you would kind of see if you're looking at Microsoft's recovery document. So going through every single piece of the recovery, installing all of the features, doing all of the reboots, seizing roles, because you don't necessarily have to have, the FSMO holders do not have to be what you back up. We can automatically seize the roles. So if for whatever reason you've had a failure for the FSMO roles, or sorry, a failure on the backup of the FSMO role holder servers, no problem. But this will literally go through and do every single thing that's needed for the recovery. And then at the end of this, basically you have a duplicate of your production forest in the cloud that you can then spin up, log into, do testing. In the event of an actual outage, you can then recover very easily. Again, it's all about comfort level, making sure that when you need this to work, you know it's going to work, because quite frankly, it's already been done for you on a schedule that you set. You don't have to build anything up yourself. You don't have to, have any VMs sitting around waiting. You don't have to have a separate recovery environment to do testing, because we build it for you. Had a customer make a comment recently that it was great because he didn't have to build anything himself. We did everything for him, and that just helps speed up the process, because time's money, and the longer AD is down, the longer it's going to be before the rest of the applications are available. Yeah. Didn't think that I'd be able to log in yet because it's not completely done, but I figured I'd give it a shot. But again, once this is done, these servers will be shut down, and then they're out there ready to go in the event of an outage. All I have to do is power them on, log in, and I'm back up. And that is instant recovery. So I'm going to flip it back over to the deck and turn it back over to Justin to close this out.
Awesome. Thanks, Chad. So just to briefly give you an idea or big picture of who Cayosoft is, and we'll just start on the far right, since forest recovery was today's topic. So forest level recovery is kind of when an all else fails type of solution, and this has to work. But I'd also like to mention that we offer a change monitoring set of tools, and I know Chad may have mentioned some of this. So when someone is in your directory messing around and something happens, either maliciously or accidentally, you have visibility into that and can instantly roll back those changes and even continuously monitor for threats. And then from an administration perspective, we use roles and rules to reduce the amount of errors and possible access for attackers, which is in an effort to prevent mistakes and changes from even happening. So hopefully you can see here that we have a fully integrated series of products specifically created for complex hybrid AD environments. We're basically your one-stop shop for managing, monitoring, and recovering your Microsoft directories, all without the hassle of using multiple disconnected tools. And while we didn't cover all of this offering today, we want to give you some information in order to check out these other offerings and give you a way to ask questions in case you're walking away with thoughts or an interest in a solution you weren't really thinking you'd have. So if you're looking at this slide here, you'll see some pages you could use to reach out depending on what you'd like to do, like ask a sales question. You could start a free trial. You can request a personalized demo. Actually, if you're ready to move forward with a personalized demo that's unique to you, you can scan that little QR code near the left side of the screen, and it'll take you directly to the demo request form. Fill that out, and we'll reach back out fairly quickly. I'll give you all a moment to jot down these links, and while you're doing that, I just want to mention that we do a lot of these types of events throughout the year. Some of those are educational, and then some more product specific, where we show you just how useful and ahead of the game the Cayosoft product series actually is. So be on the lookout for those invitations, or check out our upcoming events on the site. So now we did try to cover a lot today, and we strive to keep these short for you. So just a reminder that if we didn't get around to answering your question, we're going to be following up with you on those. So be on the lookout for those responses. So with that, thank you, Chad. We really appreciate you. And thank you all again for joining us. Take care, everyone.